She texted him first. She planned the dates. She chased. She waited. She wondered. And he just didn't seem music to care. Not because he was broken. Not because he was cruel, but because something inside him, something forged long before she ever arrived, had already decided that he didn't need her. Who is this man? And why does he seem so free? Stay until the end, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you see men and maybe how you see yourself. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is where we go deep into the human mind. No fluff, no toxic takes, just real psychology explained clearly. Today, we're cracking open one of the most searched and misunderstood topics in modern relationship psychology. The men who genuinely don't seem to care about women. Not players, not narcissists. Though we will talk about overlap, not emotionally damaged men pretending to be fine. We're talking about a specific psychological profile. A man who has reached a place, whether by choice, trauma, or evolution, where women simply don't occupy the center of his world. Some call it emotionally unavailable. Some call it stoicism. Some call it red flags, but psychology calls it something far more nuanced. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why these men are the way they are, what created them, what drives them, and what, if anything, can actually reach them. It didn't start with you. It started decades before you met him. Let me tell you about a boy named Daniel. Daniel grew up in a home where love was conditional. His mother was emotionally unpredictable. Warm one day, withdrawn the next. His father was physically present, but emotionally absent. A ghost in the living room? Daniel learned something early. The way children always do, not from textbooks, but from survival. Needing people hurts. Wanting love is dangerous. The safest place is inside yourself. So Daniel built walls quietly, methodically. By the time he was a teenager, those walls were invisible to everyone, including him. This is where the psychology of the detached man begins. According to attachment theory developed by British psychologist John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, our earliest relationships with caregivers literally program our adult attachment styles. There are 4 main styles: secure, anxious, disorganized, and avoidant. The man who doesn't seem to care, he's almost always operating from a deeply ingrained avoidant attachment style. And here's what that actually means in his brain. He learned that emotional closeness leads to pain, rejection, or loss of control. Okay? So his nervous system, his literal biology, developed a defense mechanism, suppress the need before it can be disappointed. It's not coldness, it's armor. He doesn't reach out, not because he doesn't feel, but because somewhere in his development, reaching out taught him that nothing good comes from it. Psychologist Philip Shaver found that avoidantly attached men showed the same internal physiological stress responses as anxious individuals' elevated cortisol-create heart rate, but they suppress the outward expression entirely. In other words, he cares. He just can't let you see it. And after enough years of suppression, he can barely see it himself. Not all detached men are the same. Here's how to tell the difference. Here's where it gets really interesting, because not all men who seem not to care are the same. Psychology identifies at least 3 distinct profiles under this umbrella, and understanding which one you're dealing with changes everything. Type 1, the avoidant. We already met him. This is Daniel. The avoidant man genuinely desires connection on some deep level, but his subconscious threat detection system fires every time intimacy gets close. He pulls away not because he's calculated it, but because closeness physically feels like danger to his nervous system. Behavioral signs goes cold right after a moment of deep connection. Prioritizes independence. Almost obsessively struggles to say, "I love you," even when he means it feels suffocated by emotional demand. Not because the demand is unreasonable, but because it triggers old wounds. The cruel irony? The avoidant man is often deeply sensitive underneath. He just buried it so long ago he forgot where he put it. Type 2, the self-actualized man. Now here's a type that psychology doesn't talk about enough, and it's crucial, because this man is often mistaken for the avoidant. The self-actualized man doesn't center women in his life, not because he's emotionally broken, but because he's built a life with genuine purpose, mission, and identity that fulfills him independently. He was described by Abraham Maslow, the father of humanistic psychology, as a person who has met his fundamental needs and now operates from a place of growth rather than deficiency. This man chooses not to chase. He's not running from intimacy. He simply doesn't need validation from women to feel complete. He's engaging, often charismatic, capable of deep love, but he doesn't orbit anyone. Women often find this man magnetic and then confused because he treats connection as an addition to his life, not the foundation of it. He doesn't ignore women. He simply doesn't prioritize them over himself. Type 3, the wounded narcissist. This is the one to be genuinely careful about. The narcissistic man appears not to care, and in many cases he truly doesn't. But not for philosophical reasons. At the core of narcissistic personality structure, according to researchers like Otto Kernberg, it's a profound deficit of object constancy. The psychological ability to maintain a stable, positive image of someone even when they're not present or when you're feeling frustrated with them. The narcissist doesn't care because on a deep level, he doesn't fully register other people as real in the way healthy individuals do. They are objects that serve a function, supply, status, or stimulation. When the function ends, so does the interest. Signs that distinguish this type from the avoidant. Lack of empathy even in non-threatening moments. History of sudden discard and replacement grandiosity. He doesn't need women because he believes he's above needing any one pattern of idealize, devalue, discard. Understanding which type you're dealing with is not just psychologically interesting, it's practically important. Because the avoidant can heal with the right conditions. The self-actualized man simply needs a partner who matches his energy. But the narcissist, he requires professional intervention. And in many cases, protecting yourself means accepting that you cannot change him. Why not caring is paradoxically attractive and what this reveals about human psychology. There's a fascinating and slightly uncomfortable psychological phenomenon hiding in all of this. Research from the University of Virginia, published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, found that women rated men whose interest level was uncertain as significantly more attractive than men who clearly liked them. The mystery creates cognitive engagement. The brain, wired by evolution for puzzle solving, becomes preoccupied with the unknown. This is sometimes called the effect of intermittent reinforcement. And it's one of the most powerful behavioral conditioning loops in existence. When a man seems indifferent, the brain doesn't read that as rejection. It reads it as a challenge, a mystery, a puzzle to solve. Dopamine, the brain's reward molecule, surges not when you get the reward, but when you anticipate it, when the outcome is uncertain, when the slot machine might pay out. The man who doesn't care, therefore accidentally or sometimes deliberately, creates the neurochemical conditions that make him fascinating. This is not manipulation by itself. The self-actualized man isn't playing games, but understanding this mechanism protects you from being caught in a loop where you mistake chemical obsession for genuine connection. If you find yourself thinking about someone more because they seem to care less, that's your brain on dopamine, not your heart finding its person. The honest, research-backed answer, this is the question everyone asks. And it deserves a real answer, not a comforting one, but a true one. Can the avoidant man change? Yes, but only if he decides to. Research on attachment theory shows that attachment styles are not permanent. They're patterns that can be updated with new, consistent relational experiences and often with therapy. Dr. Daniel Siegel's work in interpersonal neurobiology demonstrates that the brain remains neuroplastic, capable of forming new relational templates well into adulthood. But here's what no one wants to hear. You cannot be the person who changes him by loving him harder. The avoidant man updates his attachment model through internal work, not through a partner pursuing him more relentlessly. In fact, pursuit often triggers his withdrawal response even more. It confirms his unconscious belief that closeness equals being overwhelmed. The environment that actually allows an avoidant man to open up. Counterintuitively, safety without pressure, consistency without demand. A partner who has their own life, their own identity, their own emotional stability, and doesn't collapse when he needs space. Can the self-actualized man commit? Yes, to the right person. But that person must respect his autonomy, match his emotional independence, and bring genuine value to his life rather than simply wanting to occupy it. Can the narcissist change? Here is where we must be honest. Meaningful change in narcissistic personality structure is rare, not impossible. Some studies show limited improvement through long-term specialized therapy, but statistically uncommon. And change requires the narcissist himself to recognize and want to address the pattern, which fundamentally conflicts with the disorder's architecture. The answer here for most people is not transformation. It's awareness, boundaries, and often distance. Why society is producing more of these men than ever before? We can't talk about this topic without acknowledging something important. The psychological landscape for men has shifted dramatically in the last 2 decades. Modern dating culture, swipe apps, hyper-availability, ghosting as a social norm has created conditions that actively discourage emotional investment. When connection is both infinite and disposable, many men, particularly young men, undergo a slow psychological adaptation. They stop investing emotionally because the environment has trained them that emotional investment has a low ROI return on investment. This isn't just anecdote. Music sociologist Lisa Wade and others have documented how hookup culture specifically teaches young men to suppress vulnerability and treat romantic interaction as transactional, not because they're naturally that way, but because the environment selects for those behaviors. Add to this the rise of communities' online spaces where men gather and are explicitly taught that caring about women is a weakness, that emotional unavailability is power. That detachment is a strategy, and you have a cultural accelerant on top of individual psychological wounds. The result? A generation of men who are not just avoidant by nature or trauma, but trained into indifference. This is not about blame. It's about understanding the full ecosystem that produces the patterns, music we see, the takeaways that actually matter. So you've made it this far. Let's bring it home. Whether you're a woman trying to understand the man in your life, a man recognizing herself in what we've described, or simply someone fascinated by human behavior, here is what the psychology actually tells us. First, indifference is not always strength. In the avoidant and wounded man, it is often the most sophisticated form of fear you will ever encounter. Dressed in calm, wearing confidence as a costume. Second, attraction to detached men is normal and human. Your music brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do, but awareness gives you a choice that instinct alone doesn't. Third, you cannot heal someone else's attachment wounds by absorbing the damage. You can offer a secure, consistent presence, but the work is theirs to do. Fourth, the man who is genuinely indifferent because he has a full, purposeful life is not your enemy. He is simply someone whose needs and relational style must be honestly evaluated for compatibility, not a puzzle to be solved. And fifth, perhaps most importantly, the question is never just, why doesn't he care about me? The deeper question is, do I care enough about myself to require someone who meets me fully? Not halfway, not occasionally, not only when it's convenient. Psychology gives us the map, but you have to choose the destination. If this video gave you something to think about, a new lens on a relationship, on a pattern, on yourself, then this channel has done its job. Drop a comment below. Which of the 3 types do you think is most common today? I genuinely want to know what you think. If you found this valuable, please like this video. It helps this kind of deep research-backed content reach people who actually need it. Subscribe if you want to go further. Every week, we go deeper into the psychology of human behavior, relationships, and the patterns that quietly run our lives. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay honest, and take care of your mind.